I do, like many of you, probably hope that we have a Saturday in the near future that doesn't involve rain. But thank you for joining us on this fine rainy Tuesday for our ESEA office hour. As usual, we'll share pertinent information for all of you folks, and hopefully it will be extremely timely. The one that probably is the most timely for everyone on the call is associated with the FY26 preliminary allocations. So the U.S. Department of Ed has released Title I, Part A, and Part D preliminary allocations on Wednesday, May 14th, and the Title IV Part A preliminary allocations on Friday, May 30th. We want to inform you that the ESEA Consolidated Application for FY26 is available within Grants for Me. Our go live date was June 1st, as we promised the field as soon as we received our Title I preliminary allocations. We wanted to be sure that you folks had as much time as possible to develop your FY26 application with the preliminary allocation. So currently that application has Title I Part A, Title I Part D if applicable, and Title IV preliminary allocations in the FY26 ESEA Consolidated Application. We have not received any other titles. So in the ESEA Consolidated Application, you will see that there are placeholders for all other ESEA titles. Essentially, we have determined that that's the best way to continue to move forward. As soon as we get additional preliminary allocations for any other titles, we will make the field aware of it. We will take the time that we need to calculate preliminary allocations, and we will update the application accordingly. If you should have any questions in regards to the preliminary allocations, you can reach out to your regional program manager. However, on our website under fiscal allocations, you will see that the FY26 preliminary allocations column and data set is being updated accordingly.
Great. So really exciting. We got to see many of you at the ESEA Roadshow in May all over the state. It was great meeting folks in person. For those that weren't able to attend or really want a copy of the training slides, they are now available under resources, and I will drop them in the chat right now as well. What's really important to note is we do go over kind of the entire year. We go over sort of the titles, the performance report, the application. We go through a lot of the fiscal requirements. So definitely peruse, but especially note changes for FY26 applications, because that's going to be what feels different from previous years when filling out your ESEA Consolidated. One really major shift that folks are already asking me about is sort of that removal of generic district projects. So there is still a family engagement set-aside project. There's still a homeless set-aside project, for example. So be really clear when you see those drop downs. But there isn't going to be generic like a Title II because we are, after our federal monitoring, for those to hear it again, when the feds came, they were like, well, statute says to prioritize those at the schools, and your applications don't do that. So we are being really clear with SAUs now that even, your Title II funds in a targeted school, right, rather than its own district project, should be under that school. Or if it's not even a Title I school and it's just Title II and IV that you're serving at the high school, for instance, make sure that's under the school project for that high school. So obviously regional program managers there are always there to help. So just be mindful of that and start early. I think anytime, it's open now and you've gotten some messages about it, but start early, because if you run into issues, if something doesn't feel like you're able to navigate it, that's, starting early and getting in touch with your regional program manager will be your best bet. Another couple highlights from the new changes to the application is the couple assurances. I'm going to talk about the foster care in a moment in my next slide, but just aware of your assurances that are required. Your school-wide project details for those who have school-wide Title I programs. We have updated the intent and purpose statement page so it's more clear what that is for. Remember, intent and purpose statements are about how you already as a school and SAU are meeting the intents of all the laws in order to consolidate funding more flexibly. That's what those statements are. They are not a list of the activities that you're using to pay for. And then there's going to be a couple changes to the non-public and Title III project details. They're to clarify things and to make sure high needs are similar to sort of the other school projects for those non-public. So those are all in the slides. And again, emphasize really looking through those again. So I really wanted to highlight there's a new assurance on the page that actually requires a 45-minute training and a quiz, or like sort of a completion of the module or the training. So that's important to note, because you don't want to be working on your application at the end and realizing that the person in your SAU or school that's the foster care liaison has not attended the training or watched it. So we want to get in front of that and let you guys know, again, it's important to note that foster care for Title I is a provision. There is statutory language related to supporting and ensuring educational stability for foster care students that are in your SAU. It establishes specific educational rights, and they're going to go more into this in the training. I listened to it last night. Best interest determinations, right? Where should that child go if their foster parent is attending a different district, but their school home base is close enough, or they used to attend a different one and the continuity is more important versus a new fresh start or a different services at the school. It's really important that there is a process, a formal process for best interest determinations. Very much immediate enrollment, school of origin, and transportation, right? So how do you get that student to the school? The provisions also require a foster care point of contact, and that is the person that should be watching the training if they did not attend it. It requires a state foster care point of contact at Maine Dewey, and that's Julie Smith, and DHHS, and that's Jill Hunter. And they'll talk more about that, and that's who facilitates, Julie facilitates the training with McKinney-Vento liaison with Signe. Then foster care students are eligible for Title I. We talk a lot about special students in terms of people and subgroups of students that already become Title I eligible. Foster care is one of those. So regardless of their academics or where they go, if they're a student in your school and you have a Title I program, especially for targeted, obviously, they can qualify, right? This idea with Title I is to help your most vulnerable students, and all of the statistics out there and common sense indicates that foster care students are very vulnerable. And so the SAU and the schools are very much, should be a point of contact, should be aware, should be working with the proper protocols in order to ensure that foster care students are having comparable services, much like homeless students. So you have to complete the training, which should be dropped in the chat, and you'll have to finalize a quiz. If your foster care liaison is different than your ESEA coordinator, your foster care liaison should send the certificate of completion to your ESEA coordinator. If it's you, which I know many of you wear many hats, then be sure to print that certificate out and have it for your records. Really exciting. This is the time of season that I start receiving folks who are moving targeted schools or new schools who are eligible for Title I to school-wide. If that is you, then I review those plans in July so that by August you can have a school-wide page in your application and can move towards school-wide planning and programming for this upcoming school year. Realize that your school-wide plans are often nestled in the SAU Consolidated Plan, but school-wide plans are the ones that have specific statutory requirements. So I look through your large document for your school-wide plans, statutory requirements, that's subgroup analysis, that's the stakeholders, that's the activities you're outlining, that's the emphasis on the students most at risk of failing and how you're going to meet their needs. For schools that transition to school-wide, note that the Consolidated App does look different, so you want to kind of be prepared for that, and you can always work with your regional program manager. And I do have school-wide guidance, kind of how to apply and what it means on our website under guidance.
All right, good morning, folks. Just a couple kind of timely reminders of where you would be in the ESEA application process, especially if you're using our year at a glance as a guide. So around this time, we try to remind folks that you should be doing your consultation with all the required stakeholders for your application and also updating the CNA for both the SAU and the school. Those two things are technically different requirements under ESEA, but oftentimes go hand in hand. So you're going to want to make sure as you're doing that, you're documenting the high needs area of the school, the most recent data sources you're using to identify those high needs. And I'll just call attention to most recent available to you, right? Because sometimes we know we might have state assessment data that comes a little later than the CNA process. So whatever data you have that is most recent is what you're using to update those high needs areas. And then on your documentation, the names and the roles of the folks who are involved. This is probably the most common monitoring finding we have is that folks will update their ESEA application and say all these folks were here, but when it comes time to show, say, notes of a meeting that took place, those notes either don't exist or they aren't dated or they don't clearly state what role each person had. And we don't know who's a teacher, who's a parent, who's a student. So making sure you have clear documentation that you've done all this work. So if you are monitored, you can turn that in. Otherwise, in your application, you're just sort of listing out who was there and when the meetings happen. And you're updating all of this prior to the submission of your application so that you can determine high needs areas, generate goals. And again, as Rita mentioned, as we move more towards school-based projects and not sort of generic district projects, it becomes even more important you're identifying the high needs of maybe some schools that you previously weren't in your old applications. Along that same vein, right around this time every year, folks hold their public comment period for the ESEA application. This is different from your stakeholder involvement. This is the right that every member of the public has to comment on how their federal tax dollars are being spent at your SAU. Most folks tend to accomplish this with a presentation at, say, a school board meeting that either opens the public comment period officially and notifies folks of when that public comment period closes, or kind of the opposite. This is the closing of the public comment. That school board meeting is the last time folks take comments on their funds. As you get into the summertime, I know a lot of boards don't meet as frequently, so you want to make sure if this is how you're going to accomplish this, you get that done ASAP. And we know that some of these preliminary numbers aren't out yet, right? And that's causing a lot of stress for folks in the field. What we've suggested to help you still accomplish this public comment period is to use the preliminary numbers we do have along with figures from last year as your estimates and just be super transparent with the public in doing so. These are last year's numbers. The federal government has not released this year's. If we see an increase, we would plan to do X, Y, Z. If we saw a decrease, we'd do A, B, C, something along those lines, just to be transparent and still accomplish your public comment. We don't want to hold folks up waiting for the federal government. And lastly, we know that July 1 is often a time of transition for folks, especially in central office roles across the state. So this is just a reminder that you are updating grants for me, updating that address book. So if someone leaves, you're removing those roles, taking their access away from your district. And if someone new arrives, it's really important to add them and add those roles. We use that address book to send out communications just like the one you probably got this morning for this meeting. So if someone isn't given that ESEA coordinator role or that fiscal representative role as the business manager, they're not getting all the information they need. Usually there are at least two folks in your SAU who are what we call the user access administrator. Oftentimes that's the superintendent and then someone who's their designee. Could be an administrative assistant, the ESEA coordinator, the business manager, just someone else who can kind of help manage those roles. If at any time, you get a little bit lost, we do have a user access guide on our website, and you can always reach out to your regional program manager, and we can help you as well.
All right, good morning, folks. Just a reminder for the FY25 ESEA winter monitoring that all monitoring results for the winter window have been entered. So SAUs can see these on the monitoring results LEA response page and should begin uploading any corrective actions if needed. Please make sure that you change your status to LEA results review started for this page to be enabled. And then to access training, resources, and guidance to relevant ESEA monitoring, including the winter collection period, please make sure you visit our ESEA monitoring homepage.
I know we're prepping for FY26, but for those who work with non-publics who receive equitable services, you want to be reminding them to be submitting data this fall for FY27. The student data system is changing this year from Synergy to Connect. So we're recommending that non-publics attend general summer training on this new platform to understand how to upload the data within this new platform. So again, just for non-publics, for those ESEA coordinators who work with them, we recommend you tell the folks you consult with if they want Title I, they need to attend a general summer training. Those dates will be on the next slide. There'll be a more targeted fall training on specific Title I data input. We anticipate that'll be on September 9th at noon, but still solidifying that date. And then again, that low-income student data should be inputted into the Maine DOE's Connect student data reporting system. And you can go to the next slide, Shelley. Yeah, so here are the different dates in July and early August. The sessions will be from 9 to 12, and I'll pop that link in the chat for how to sign up.
Jess, quick question was whether the state's going to communicate about this training to non-publics directly.
We have not in the past. Generally, we've only communicated about that's a good question, Jen. I'll think about that. I assume that would be helpful for you if you're asking.
I was thinking about that because this last Power School, this last time when non-publics were entering information into Synergy for the first time, there was a team of folks who were offering support and training. I think it was maybe the tech team. So if that's a possibility, that would be great.
Thank you for that suggestion. We'll get back to you on that.
Good morning, everyone. I want to share with you that we have federal fiscal office hours coming up in July at 10 a.m. And I'm going to pop the registration link into the chat for you. This is a good opportunity for new hires to get acquainted with the Maine DOE's federal fiscal team and ask any questions that they have about federal grant management. Another opportunity is our fiscal boot camp, which is going to be offered during the 2025 Educator Summit, which is going to be held at Thomas College. The same content will be offered both days, so you only need to commit to one or the other. Funds that are ended 9/30/25 are highlighted in yellow here. Please make note and get your invoices in as soon as possible. There are several streams of funds that will be expiring. Spending down funds. Here are the remaining fund amounts for ESEA funds. FY23, there's a little over $750,000. 24, there's 5.1 million, and 25, there's 36.5 million. As you can see, we really need invoices to come in, especially for FY23 and FY24, should we not receive a Tidings Amendment waiver. Some reimbursement request reminders. A detailed expenditure report must be uploaded as a PDF, not an Excel spreadsheet. These reimbursement requests will be rejected if there is an Excel spreadsheet attached. Additional backup for PD, travel, tuition reimbursement. Often, I would say 99.9% of the time, I will ask for the invoices for any tuition reimbursement, travel, and PD. I am receiving several requests that just have the detailed expenditure report for these specific expenditures, and I am kicking them back, asking for more backup. So it just delays the payment process, and right now there is transition going on in the General Service Center, which may impact the time frame in which you receive payment. First in and first out, there is a mindset that you use the oldest funds that first, which means the funds that you received first, right? However, there is some Title I nuances that must be met. If you receive over 50,000 after transfers in Title I, you can only carry over 15% of that allotment. And there's only one waiver every 3 years. So if you are still using old funds and haven't moved to FY25 yet, you may want to take a real hard look at those Title I funds, especially to make sure that you're going to fall below that 15% excessive carryover.
And as always, we end our office hours with an opportunity to share some professional learning that is happening across the department. The one that has been mentioned in our office hours today, but we're drawing specific attention to it at this time, is the annual summit, which is happening at Thomas College on August 5th and 6th. Tyra alluded to the fact that we are providing a fiscal management boot camp. Content is going to be identical on day 1 and day 2. So we're really encouraging you folks to encourage your business managers and business professionals to attend that training. We have an array of topics, but also one other notion that we wanted to highlight here is any schools that have been identified for TSI, ATSI, or CSI are able to participate in this training, and their registration fees would be waived up to 5 staff members per school. So if you have a school that is identified, this may be a wonderful opportunity to participate in some professional learning offered as a department and no cost to the SAU in particular or the school. As always, we leave you with our contact information. Your primary point of contact for all items associated with ESEA will be your regional program manager, unless it's a fiscal item, and then Tyra would be your point of contact. But again, regardless of the title question that you have, your RPM is your point of contact for this team. We're going to stop the recording and we're going to stop sharing our slides so that we can jump into questions.